Good afternoon. I'm Shiv Mathur back again on my channel, and I thought there are some very interesting points to discuss, seeing the current situation in the world and how much toxic the environment is becoming, how people are getting distanced from each other, how this whole family based system is collapsing, and how the relationships are slowly break, breaking up, and the harmony and humanity is diminishing world over. And this can be seen at granular level, at micro level and a macro level. Micro level means you can see how a unit family is also disintegrating, how joint family system, which was there not just in India, but I think in even in the Western world, people in the villages, they live together. Families are much close knit. And as we move towards larger cities and we started chasing more money and we got drifted towards consumerism, this this divide has been increasing with time. And before we realize what has hit us, so this divide has been increasing at a micro level, and at if you look at macro level, at the government and the politicians globally, how the countries have been fighting and what are the wars. They all are based upon greed and lust, money and lust. Lust is for money also, and lust is for unethical things also. So this divide is increasing, the greed is increasing. There is ego, obviously, inbuilt in all these issues, and urge to acquire power, control, and manipulate, and be on the top and look down upon other people. I'm better than the other, trying to prove and constantly trying to prove that I am better than you, and this ego driven. Also, most of this whole process of trying to prove yourself, whether it is a micro level or a macro level, whether it's American president or whether it is top politicians of the big countries, how they are trying to manipulate the global order and what they're trying to do. Are they really benevolent class which is actually trying to change the world order, or they are the greedy ones? It's for you to think about this, and how this whole toxicity. I'm talking about toxicity which is increasing by the day in the whole world at micro and macro level, right from homes to organizations to groups to community, a relationship, wherever you go. If you go to temples, big famous temples, within the management of the temples, there is a war, fight, court cases. The management is, there are groups within the trusts which are fighting. They are all in the court. If you go to the court in any of the religious towns, you will find almost every trust is fighting, acquiring forcefully. Even look at churches, what is happening. People have lost trust in church. The originality of Bible, the depth of Bible, or depth of all religious books is actually lost. There are all storytellers everywhere. If you look at, if I look at the Indian scriptures, and there are a lot of storytellers. People are conducting courses, and so this is not the way. It's all become a commercial business, and the ultimate motive is, whether you're a businessman or you're a religious man or you're a spiritual, so-called spiritual man, you're all trying to create your own empire, and you're trying to control. You're running after fame and power and ego. So it's all driven by ego. But I'm going to touch upon a point which is actually not just ego. It's a very subtle human quality which is actually now grossly lacking globally. at all level, which is actually uh, laziness, or I would say a positive way. Are we hardworking? Are we trying to achieve by virtue of hard work, where we actually deserve it and get it, or are we trying to take the other route, shortcut, by hook or crook, by manipulating, by taking a shortcut, but not actually deserving it, and we're trying to reach there. So basically, we want everything. We are looking for all fame and acknowledgement and a fake identity, acceptance, some false gratification, sense of gratification, without doing anything. So my core point in this discussion is that we are trying to achieve the worldly fame, the worldly comforts, which actually are not source of this constant and eternal happiness, which will actually lead to a peace of mind and a meditative state of mind, a state of constant happiness. So we are trying to achieve some unknown kind of comfort or happiness, which we are not very sure about it, through these materialistic gains, which I have mentioned, like fame and money and power and position and acceptance and kind of identity, trying to show others that I am better than you. So this is a kind of gratification, unknown gratification, unknown kind of happiness we thought is defined as so-called success, or, which is a rat race which everybody is trying to follow, and through this everybody is running on this path, and in the end we are actually stabbing each other on the path, and so that's why we are distancing away from everyone, because what matters to us is only this goal, which is a very artificial goal, ultimately leading us to a mental wrecks. So if I'll come back to the kind of toxicity which is being generated, the kind of divides which have been created in this world at macro level, is actually going to lead to wars. So we are in a constant war within ourselves, ultimately. And when we are in a war within ourselves, because we have not really realized what is the purpose of our being on this planet, so then we are at war with everybody else. What is going on inside is actually the perception which is being created and reflecting, and that's what we are assuming. So we are in a constant disagreement with everyone, because we are actually in disagreement with our true self. What we are trying to create is not the true human self, but we are trying to create a fake identity. So we are in disagreement with the true nature of human being. And with that, when that happens, there is a constant toxic environment which we are creating, and with everyone creating a toxic environment, ultimately there will be a war, or we'll be in a aggressive mode wherever we are, whatever position we are. So if we are a leader of a country, or we are some global leader, or we are some regional power or something, so we are in a constant state of conflict. So this conflict is actually with our own ourself, but it is leading to a conflict around us. And slowly, if you see, this conflict is leading to a collapse. It's going to lead to a collapse of a civilization. Now there are many prophecies about Kalki Avatar coming in and the end of Kali Yuga, and there are many talks happening. And whether they are right or wrong, I really don't know. But if you actually see how over the period of last few decades, how we have moved, which direction we are moving, and present situations happening globally, there is a lot of instability happening globally now. It's not limited to a certain region of the world where there were more conflicts, but now these conflicts are actually spreading everywhere. And you really don't know who will end up fighting whom, actually, because there is a lot of formations happening and a lot of groupism happening, and there are change of alignment happening, and a lot of hypocrisy happening, and so no, really don't know who's with whom. So what I feel that no one is with no one, with anyone, and ultimately we'll end up fighting like fools, who don't know what they're doing. And today we are in actually that state. So, the like if you look at the prophecies of end of Kali Yuga, they say that 90% of the world will be wiped out. So why 90%? They say all those who are evil will be wiped out. So ultimately, logically, I feel the toxicity which is getting created in on this planet will be ultimately erased by the nature. Now you can call it Kalki Avatar, you can call it God will come or Jesus will come back. Whatever you say, I mean, whichever part of the world, whatever prophecies are there, but ultimately they are all indicating to the correction which the nature is going to undertake. And as the toxicity will increase, it's on a no return path. It cannot be now corrected. So when it cannot be corrected, it has to be destroyed. I think that's sounds logical to me. I may be wrong, or maybe you may not agree with me, but I'm just expressing my opinion here. And this toxicity is going to destroy the world, and all the toxicity will be removed only when the people who are creating it will be removed. So there can be a world war, there can be a nuclear attack, and the majority, the 90% of the population will be wiped out. And they say that people who are spiritual, truly human, truly generous and benevolent, they will be saved by the nature because they will be protected, maybe because of the field they have, non-toxicity. So they are the kind of people who will be needed to take this world to the next stage after this collapse. Even I was seeing Prabhupada's video, who's the founder of ISKCON, a very great person, and he also mentioned in one of his video that the civilization which is based on money is going to collapse, because this is just a paper transaction we are doing. We are fighting over a paper which is actually very virtual. Now if you see how Sri Lanka has collapsed, how Pakistan is collapsing, many places, many countries are collapsing. Like there is a war in a country and suddenly the government will say there's no money, freeze all the accounts. Suddenly you become a pauper. You may have any amount of money in your bank, but suddenly it can be just nullified. And if you are a consumer, if you are not a creator, if you are not a producer, if you are just a pure consumer, then you are suddenly a big pauper. You won't have food. You may not have access. Even in Shanghai, in China, what's happening, the kind of lockdown which is happening, people are now not getting food. So what's happening is those kind of predictions that the air will be polluted, there will be toxicity in the air, the water will be polluted, there will be toxicity in the water, people won't have access to water, people won't have access to food. Something of that is happening. Now this pandemic also is not really actually a pandemic, but it has been manipulated as a pandemic, and it's a basically issue of controlling. So the governments have also become not just dictator, but they have become very, very aggressive with their own people. So this whole conflict it's a conflict at every level. If you see at any level, there's a conflict. Whether it's organization, whether it's management, whether it is people right below them, everybody is frustrated. So now, after discussing all this, I'm going to come to a point. What is one of the core reasons which is creating this, which I also mentioned in the present discussion, that there's a laziness factor which is coming in a big way. Ego is always there with ultimately, which is preventing, because ego creates ignorance. Ego prevents you to know the fact, prevents you to realize your true self, true nature, and what is your true purpose. So ego is always there because ego is a major factor. But before the ego, what is actually driving you to take a wrong path? It's a laziness. Most people want to achieve without doing anything. So when they are lazy, they what? So now I'll talk about laziness, ego, and dharma and adharma. and karma. Again, coming back to karma and dharma. If we don't understand karma and dharma philosophy, which is given in Vedanta or which is there in Sanatana Dharma, then we are going to fail in our duty as an individual, as a collectively, as a community, as a country, or as at a global level. We'll all collapse. So Prabhupada's prophecy that this civilization based on money, which is in turn based on greed and lust and fame and power and all that nonsense, it's going to collapse. And that's the direction we are going into now. Neighbors don't even know what's happening with their neighbors. So we are all totally disconnected now, disoriented, disconnected, selfish, totally selfish, only worried about our own self, as if we only run the world. We don't have trust in God. We don't know. We don't realize that everything is happening. God is making happen everything. Everything in your life is happening. You're paying for your karmas. So understand karma. Now karma and laziness cannot go together. If you are lazy, you cannot perform your karma. If you are lazy, what is karma? Your responsibilities. Just think, who's performing their responsibility fully, rightfully? How many people are using unethical means? How much corruption is there at all levels? How corrupt? Corrupt means it's not just the government or the employees who are corrupt. It is you are corrupt everywhere. You don't want to do by making rightful efforts to gain something which is needed actually, not to gain something which is not needed. That's another aspect. But to even perform your basic duties as simple as a householder, as a husband, as a son, as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter, are you really performing your duties? Are you even aware what are your duties? So if you're not aware what are your duties, if you've forgotten that, then so you're a failure, already a failure, because you're not even bothered to introspect and understand what are your duties as per your role, which is there on your personal front and then professional front. Everywhere people are trying to escape. So now I'll talk about escapism, laziness, escapism, or then I will also use a word called liberation, which is being now very broadly used in case of gender bias, like women liberation. We talk about women liberation. Women liberation is meant for women who are actually need to be liberated, but it is more used by women who are already liberated. Those not those women who need liberation, but actually the women who are actually liberated are liberating themselves from their main duties. And today nobody can tell them anything. So this escapism by everyone, maybe man or woman, not realizing what is the duty for a man. If a boy is not working hard to become capable, not just by qualification, by doing something, you have to have a purpose of life to be able to earn your livelihood. It can be by being a farmer, it can be by being an engineer, it can be by any entrepreneur. So to do that, you got to work hard. You have to really work hard. You may start from scratch. So if you start from scratch and when you're very young, you can build it up. You don't have to go big. You don't have to take loans. You can start small, create your own funds. You see how entrepreneurs emerge when they are young, provided they take up that path and somebody has guided them and they have known that path. So most of the people are chasing jobs. Most of the people are chasing something else. But they really are not very clear. There's no clarity to the young generation that what should be chasing and what is a method to chase it and how much of hard work is needed. They also want shortcuts now. Everybody is glued to these media now, digital media. So a lot of time, almost I would say most of the time, people are just hooked onto the screen and they've stopped working actually. The karma is gone. It is only they are filling their brain with nonsense which is being thrown. The constant toxicity which is being poured into their mind. There is too much of excessive, unwanted information which is being flowing into your mind, and you are responsible for it. So rather than performing your duties, you are actually wasting your time right from morning to late in the night. All your productive time which is required for fulfilling your duties and responsibilities is actually getting wasted into this. So this whole energy is actually directed, dissipated, I would say, something into negative, some negative aspect, addiction to the digital media and all that stuff. So laziness, this is also because you just want to sit and keep listening. So your brain is inactive actually. It is constantly receiving useless input which is not needed. So it is getting impaired actually. The brain is not stimulated. It is overfed with information on a daily basis, not just once. When we had a television, so people initially used to watch one or two programs, and there were very few channels. Today there are, you cannot even count how many channels are there. Forget the number of programs which are being thrown. So how much of media is constantly, pouring into your mind? So much of toxicity is already coming into the brain. Eating toxicity, inhaling toxicity, your mind is taking toxicity through all your sensory organs. It is only a toxic input which is coming to your body. So that's why there's a toxicity, because your ability to think clearly, the ability to determine what is right and wrong, everything is gone. Your decision making is gone. Your confidence is gone. You are more insecure. You're filled with fear, and you've lost trust in God. You've forgotten what is the whole creation all about and how the universe runs. So with all these problems, laziness is something which is now, which I am talking about by explaining karma and dharma. And dharma, I'm telling that karma, I'm telling that I'm talking about responsibilities, which is my main area of focus on this particular today's discussion is laziness and karma. And karma is a responsibility. So I would request, please, if you understand my discussion here, please introspect, please contemplate on this point, that how are you escaping from your responsibilities? And what will happen if you escape from responsibility? Who will do it? Should somebody else do it for you? So you want to exploit people. So there is an exploitation happening. There's an imbalance which is happening, because if somebody is not going to perform the duty, the machine is not going to function properly. Or the machine cannot be your family, it can be your house, it can be your office, it can be whichever responsibility you have undertaken. It is not going to work. You won't get the results. And then you're going to blame somebody else. And if somebody tells you, you're going to fight over it, whether it's an office, whether it is home. So this escapism, which is the trigger is from laziness. And if you talk about dharma, dharma doesn't talk about being lazy. Dharma talks about, if you have responsibilities, if you have duties, perform them sincerely, work towards it. God has made everybody equally able physically and mentally, so that you can perform those duties. If you can't perform those duties, don't undertake those duties, don't enter those arrangements. Then decide that I don't want to work, I'm going to, then how I will live, or who will support me, how will I live in the system? Because we are in a community based system, we are not in an individualistic system, which like monks live in solitude. I have made a video on solitude just before this video. If you understand solitude, if you can live in solitude, if you are not looking for any worldly things, but you cannot avoid that. You are living in this Maya illusion, you are living in this worldly, and you have to live in the system. You can't live alone. You will fall. So please introspect on your roles and responsibility, and understand that you are really truthful to yourself or not. If you are not, it is your peace of mind which is going to be disturbed. It is your mental peace which is going to be disturbed. You can pretend to do spiritual practices. You can pretend to do, being a spiritual person. You can pretend to do puja and prayer. You can pretend to do meditation, but you will not achieve anything. You will keep degrading day by day. You will become a mental wreck. And this is what the toxicity which is happening today. That's why there is so much of aggression in the world. And that's why we are going in this direction. And now I can tell you, it is irreversible. People can talk, people can advise, but people have become there's no returning now. It is going toward self-destruction now. This world is going toward self-destruction. The communities, the cultures, there's a total collapse of the cultures. Cultures have been lost. India had a beautiful culture. It is going towards West. West has already collapsed. They collapsed. They culturally collapsed. So when the culture is collapsed, the foundation is collapsed, the country will collapse. There will be a general looting. There is total manipulation. Look at America, what is happening now. So there's a total collapse. Look at the way Europe is also going down. If you look at each continent, Africa, they have everything, so much minerals, but why are they so poor? Like just now, like I was reading about battery, electronic vehicles. The battery, 70% of the batteries, lithium, cobalt is coming from Congo. A small country in Africa producing 70% of the cobalt. And what is happening there? Why are they so poor? Look at the gold mines. Gold mines across the world. The people who are extracting gold are so poor. The countries which have those mines, they're so poor. But who's looting them? What is the core reason for being in that state when God has given you everything? Why do we have this global trade? Why do we need that? In fact, I also wanted to make a separate video on how should we live as a community? How should we be self-reliant? Live in a small community. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't need a vehicle. You have naturally available water. You have naturally available sunlight. You can grow fruits and vegetables. So what else you need? You can build your own house with your natural things. And if suppose there are 10 people or 20 people in a community, all will be assigned certain duties. Somebody is going to be responsible for growing wheat. Somebody will be responsible for growing fruits. And somebody will be responsible for making clothes. Somebody will be responsible for building the small houses, and same kind of houses. No differentiation. Socialism. We divide the tasks based on what all we need, basic needs, and then we live happily. We can have a common kitchen. We can have common sports and common treks, and then some singing and all. What else you need in life? I wanted to make a separate video on that, but probably I will make it more clear. But these idea looks very radical, but this is how we should be living in a harmony. Harmony will come only if there is a sharing. Harmony will come only if there's no greed. These are very deep topics, but I thought I will talk about toxicity and laziness as equally important topic, because laziness is the one which is not making us do our karma correctly. Karma is responsibilities and duties, and when we discuss further how each duty should be done, should again dharma. So today there is total adharma. Laziness is one of the factor of adharma. Ego, laziness, these two very things all both in a great combination are actually working to destroy this civilization. And you may ignore what I am saying, but this is a direction we are heading into, and it is moving towards the collapse. It's so much of immorality in the society, so much of immorality. Look at the kind of these serials or programs which are running. If I talk about Indian TV now, this lockup and then some stupid big boss and all that. What kind of education they're giving? What nonsense is that? Is that a culture should be based on? Should these be popular TV shows? Psychopathic shows, movies? What the hell are we making? What are we giving to the society? We just want to scandalize, to make money, and is that the success? You're going to take away money? You come empty-handed or go empty-handed? So this is a very different video I made, which is because I thought this is not directly about spirituality and meditation, but it's very important because ultimately spirituality and meditation is nothing else. It's about peace of mind and humanity. So, and what is happening in the world it's one needs to really think what is happening in the world rather than sitting and blaming that they did this and they did that. But see why it is happening. What is your contribution to this toxicity? Are you doing your fulfilling your duties? Okay, thanks. I hope you like the video, and I hope you get a positive message and you become a change maker. And if we don't become change makers, if we don't change ourselves, we can become change makers only once we understand that I'm also doing something wrong and I need to correct myself to go into the right direction. Okay, thank you.